what is involved in pregnancy, childbirth, and child rearing for women, now that I understand how dangerous pregnancy is, how women, end up having lifelong ailments, permanent issues after carrying children, that women be losing their teeth, losing their hair, losing their eyesight, diabetes, high blood pressure. They suddenly have these new diseases, tendons and bones have been pushed out of place and never go back to their normal position. All of the complications that can happen from carrying children, morning sickness. I just heard about this morning sickness. I forgot the name of it, but it's an extreme form of morning sickness. I don't recall the name. If you do, pop it in the comments. But it is an extreme form of morning sickness, not just like your horrible morning sickness, but like morning sickness where there was a woman. The reason I heard about this is because a woman recently ended her life by suicide because she had this, and it was such an extreme experience of morning sickness. Now that I understand what goes into carrying children, now that I understand how dangerous it is to deliver babies, how women be dying in childbirth all the time, how the United States has one of the highest birth mortality rates, how Black women especially, we have the highest birth mortality rates in this country. Now that I understand how dangerous giving birth is, now that I understand that women do the vast majority of raising children, married or not, that there are a lot of single married mothers out there doing 100% of the load when it comes to child rearing in the house, despite having a whole ass husband up in that bitch. Now that I understand that you essentially, as a woman, if you decide to have a child, you have to be prepared mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, and financially to do it alone, whether you're married or not, because you might end up being one of them single mothers who are married, single married mothers. Now that I understand what really goes into having children, I'm starting to think that women are not supposed to be having kids at the rate that we be having kids in the modern era. I'm telling y'all, back in the day prior to the patriarchy, when we lived in matriarchal communities, mostly matriarchal matrilineal communities, we lived in small, tiny communities. Okay. We had small, women weren't out here popping out kids every 15 minutes. I believe that, scientists have discovered or have researched and found that women back in matrilineal and matriarchal societies would have kids once every 6-7 years. It wasn't, having a kid every 2 years. You got a toddler on one arm, you got a newborn on the other arm, that these women were having kids every 6 years, that they weren't having children like that. I really believe that we women are not supposed to be having children the way we're having children today. And the reason why we're having children at such high rates, especially, in the 20th century, we're in the 21st now. But the reason why is because of capitalism and patriarchy. That's it. The idea of women being baby factories, right? We have the vice president, J.D. Vance. That was practically what he campaigned on. Women and motherhood, and how women are supposed to be out here having babies. Notice that's the conservative line, right? Because, they're very, very wrapped up in that patriarchal mindset and that capitalist mindset. But the patriarchy and capitalism is what created this narrative that women are supposed to just be pumping babies out. Why? So that we can pump out workers for the capitalists, so that the capitalists can make money. Why? So that we can have women trapped in eternal unpaid servitude, constantly taking care of these children who will then go on to be the workers for the capitalists. That's why women are out here pumping babies out, especially back in the 20th century, having, how many of us, all of us, how many of us have parents who's, especially boomer parents and above, who are one of 6 kids, one of 8 kids, one of 12 kids. That shit is insane. And when you know how dangerous carrying children, bearing children, and raising children, when you know how dangerous it is, it's crazy to think that our grandmothers and great grandmothers were out here popping out 10, 12, 14, 16 children. Knowing what it entails and understanding what it entails, I'm telling y'all, I don't believe that we as humans are supposed to be pumping out these amount of children like that.